I'm telling you, it's no word of a lie. If you look hard enough, success will leave you a clue on how to achieve it and sustain it. For Robert Riopel, he went from $150,000 in personal debt as a Domino's franchisee owner to financial freedom at the age of 32. How did he make such a dramatic turnaround? And how does he help others achieve the same goals? As a growth and development coach, Riopel says that we all have the vision and information to be successful. However, a large majority of us don't have the confidence in ourselves to execute. So this international speaker, author, and app designer has come up with some clues for us all to follow on the road to prosperity. Riopel joined me this week to have a robust and intense discussion about personal development, growth, and personal achievement. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Yeah, Robert, so if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program. And I'm excited to learn all about your journey and business life and everything in between. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thanks so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely, Kevin.
So, Robert, I know that you've spent the last 18 years traveling the world and the country, sort of delivering your message of inspiration and passion. So, tell me about why you like connecting with people on a human level, and what's the best part about connecting with people to share your passion.
Well, for me, I think it's been my journey of growth and what I've learned from doing that traveling. Because before I became a trainer, I was a typical Alberta boy where I didn't travel much, I didn't go much places, and not sure if people were, had the same mindsets. And personal development helped me get out of a lot of trouble in my life, financial stress all over the place. And all of a sudden, when I started training, I started traveling around the world, and I quickly realized that no matter where we're born and where we grow up, we may have different ways of being taught, but we all tend to have the same kind of messages in our mind trying to hold us back, trying to sabotage our success. And so that became a great way for me to realize I'm no different than other people. And the problems and the mindset that I have issues with, so do other people. And if we can all connect that way, what's better than that? And so just being able to connect with as many people as I can has become one of the greatest blessings I have in my life.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that you came from humble beginnings to financial freedom at the age of 32. So tell me about that journey and the one lesson throughout your own journey that you hope to impart on other people that you encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. I was taught when it came to work as an example that even if you didn't enjoy doing what you're doing, to support your family, if it's got security and you're making an income, you do whatever it takes. And that's what I did when I started working young in my life. And by the time I'm 21, I had worked for 3 different companies that I'd been laid off from. And here in Alberta in 1989, not to tell you how old I am, Kevin, but at 21 in 1989, when I'm laid off from my third job, the only job I could find was delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. And I started doing that as a way of supporting, because I'm still a newlywed, supporting my family. Very quickly, start making more money than my real job. Because of my work ethic, I actually get promoted to being a manager a short while later. My wife becomes my assistant, and together we start doing what we've been programmed to do. We start working hard, open to close, 7 days a week. And a year and a half into that, we find out my franchisee wants to sell his 2 stores and get out of Domino's Pizza. And I think we're going to get laid off again. We're qualified to be franchisees, but we don't have money because we're barely making any and we're barely afloat. So I think we have to find another job. And my wife comes up with the crazy idea, why don't we buy the store? And I'm like, honey, because we have no money. That's why we're not buying the store. But my wife has passion, and her passion is not willing to allow us to play smaller than we are. So we started learning, how do you buy a business if you have no money of your own? And it took a lot of mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes, saying the wrong things, getting turned down again and again, until we finally learned what to say and what not to say. And we were actually able to get 100% financing for both of the stores that my franchisee had for sale. And we became franchisees at the age of 23, which was pretty cool. Now, we knew how to run a business or run a Domino's Pizza store, but we didn't know how to run a business, Kevin. And there's a big difference between the two. And for the first 2 years as franchisees, our whole mindset was, if there's money in the bank, we must be doing okay. And that's not necessarily the best way to do a business. And when we finally figured out how to do it, we started doing pretty well. But our own personal spending habits, we started spending more money than we were earning. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we're over $150,000 in personal debt and going down quickly. And that's when we were introduced to personal development, growing ourselves, learning about ourselves. And we went to a 3-day training that not only taught us why we are handling money the way we did and how to better handle it and manage it, but more importantly, it told us and taught us to take responsibility for our debt. Quit blaming other people, which is one of the things that we were doing, that it was someone else's fault. And then third, we learned some specific actions that allowed us to get out of debt. And we did. We ended up going from the $150,000 in debt to being retired completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32. And that's when that little bit of learning taught us what we could do in our life if we learned more. That's where we started becoming students in every area we could. And that's where I found my passion. And probably the biggest lesson along the way is I learned the importance of just being me. I'm a world-class people pleaser, Kevin. And especially if I like someone, I do everything I can. I would try to make them like me more. I became like that lost little puppy, like, come on, like me, please, 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 please. And that would usually get people upset. They're like, get away from me. And when I learned to just be me, that when I'm me, people are either going to like me or they're not. And if they like me for who I am, that's awesome. If they don't like me for who I am, that's awesome. Because how much time did I waste trying to get people to like me?
Yeah, building up your own personal character comes first, because you have to know what you value as a person before you can help and inspire other people. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And tell me, Robert, your impression of the importance of mentorship and sort of laying the foundation for others to follow as well. I'm curious.
Yeah, in my book, Success Left a Clue, you're hitting it right on the head. I give out 6 steps, and the second step to create the life you want is to find a mentor or someone to model from. Because chances are, unless you're an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, chances are someone's done what you want to do before you. And so find out how they did it, how they accomplished it. But then the other side of that is right from the beginning, ask yourself, who can I be a mentor to? Who can I model? And a lot of times when I'll say that, people go, but Robert, I haven't done what you have. I haven't been successful here. I don't have all this great success. How can I mentor someone? And my response to that is this, Kevin, is that I don't care who you are, you have a gift to give this world. And a lot of the times that greatest gifts comes from something hard times you've gone through. And so you start with where you are. You be authentic. You don't try to say, hey, I'm all amazing if you haven't got to that level yet. But you say, here's where I'm at. and I'm sure there's even one person I can mentor. So it is critical to not only get mentorship, but to give mentorship at the same time.
Absolutely. And I know that you alluded to it a little bit, but I know that you have clues which help other individuals open to the possibilities which lie within them. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about that.
Yeah, well, as I started training, I was then blessed to be able to share the stage with some of the top thought leaders in the world as I traveled around the world. And I started noticing some similarities between people who have success and people who don't. And I decided to put them in my book as clues. So an example of that is the first time I ever went to India, and I met an amazing young lady. I had just finished doing a 3-day training, and our partner there, I had mentioned I wanted to do some shopping for my wife. My first time in India, I wanted to kind of bring some stuff back for her. And he said, well, let me get my driver and I'll have one of our staff take you around. So to help you navigate and figure out what you want to find. And when I'm having a conversation with her, one of the things I love to ask people is this, Kevin. I love to ask, first of all, as I get to know them, what do you do? Well, I knew she worked for our partner, but I asked her, what do you do with the company? And she said, I'm in the marketing department. My second question is always, do you enjoy doing what you do? And it's amazing how many people say no. But her answer actually surprised me. She said, right now I do. And I looked at her, I'm like, what do you mean right now? And what she said was, well, next year I'm getting married, so I'll probably change roles. So while I'm doing marketing, I definitely enjoy it. And I can be clueless sometimes, like a lot of guys. I shouldn't speak for other guys, but I'm clueless sometimes. I wasn't even sure what she was talking about. And I said, oh, where did you meet your fiance? And her response was, well, I haven't met him yet. I'll meet him at our engagement party for the first time, because I wasn't even thinking of arranged marriages. And so I apologized, that I was sounding, like, I'm sorry, I didn't even think of that. She goes, no, it's okay. And because I'm a curious person, I said, can I ask you some questions about that? And she said, sure. I said, on the arranged marriage, I said, does it ever turn into love? And what her answer is, look, in India, there's two types of marriages. There's arranged marriages and there's love marriages. And she said, on arranged marriages, I said, that's got to be tough. How do you prepare for that? How do you haven't met the person? How do you know if you're even a match? How could you even prepare? And she said, I go by the advice my mother gave me. And my mother said, choose to be happy. Because if you do, no matter what, as long as you're leading a happy life, that allows you to have a better life. But if you bring in angst and like, oh, I'm not sure, and what if I don't like them and this better work, that's going to impact the relationship in a different way. So she said, so I just choose to be happy. And that's how I'm going to live my life. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So those are the kind of clues that I put through my book. Everything, the everyday things I've noticed from traveling around the world that I know help people just like me.
Yeah, when you can invest and meet people on a human level, it goes a long way with connecting with them, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it for sure does. Because again, we're all the same. We may have differences in appearances, different in beliefs, differences in upbringings, but we all have the same kind of desires, and we all came from the same place, and we're all going back to the same place. It's only our ideals that make us think we're different than another person, which is what causes a lot of problems around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Robert, I know that you believe that people have the information and the value system in order to make a meaningful difference, but they don't always believe in themselves. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that part of our conversation today.
Sure will. Low self-esteem. That is something I've noticed that plagues a lot of people all over the world, myself included. One of the reasons I do what I do is because I still battle low self-esteem. Even though I've personally taught over 500,000 people, I've impacted, millions of lives indirectly, I still doubt myself sometimes. And it's about, who do you surround yourself with? When I try to do it all on my own, that's when the self-doubt is the hardest. But you talk about human connection. I'm a huge believer in surrounding yourself with growth-minded people. And there's a difference between like-minded people and growth-minded people. See, like-minded people, and this was a paradigm shift I got last year from a mentor of mine. If you're surrounded by complainers and you're like-minded, you're going to be a complainer. And what he said is a growth-minded person, when you surround yourself with them, they're the people that if you stumble, they'll be there to help pick you up. If you're doing great, they're going to be your greatest cheerleaders. But they're also the ones that are going to be willing to have the tough conversations with you when they're needed. And that's the difference. And so I choose to surround myself with as many growth-minded people as I can, so I don't become my own worst enemy. So that if I am going through self-doubt, they can look at me and say, what's going on? You've got this. Why are you holding back? And that's the kind of people I choose to really connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. When we push ourselves to be better, we grow as people, and sometimes people that share the same value system can look at our same situation from a different perspective, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So, Robert, tell me, for you, I know that we're both fellow Canadians. So tell me, for you, what's the best part about being Canadian?
Is that we just live in such a beautiful country, and I love my space. And I get reminded every time I go to a country like Thailand or India or Vietnam, where it's so many people. I love those countries. I love visiting them, but I love coming back to Canada and having the space around me. That's probably one of the biggest things that I love about this country.
And tell me, Robert, I know that you host a podcast where you give out this information. To tell me about the podcast you host and the message that you hope to deliver.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I haven't recorded an episode of my podcast in over 2 years. And the reason I did it is because it's titled the same as my book that I released in 2017. And I started it where in the 104 episodes I've done, I've only interviewed people on, I think, 4 of the episodes. The rest were just me traveling around the world in a hotel room. And as things come to me, I write them down, Kevin. And so I'd be in a hotel and I would just knock off 4 or 5 podcasts where it'd be 5 or 10 minutes, just me getting information that was in my head down to serve people. And just like having, hey, this is me and here's what I'm thinking of today. But I'm looking at, because I'm writing my second book and I've been loving being a guest and meeting amazing people like you and going, I think maybe I'm going to start another podcast where it's going to be all interviews for my new book on being an authority. Because I just, these last 3.5 months, I've been blown away by the amazing hosts that I've been connected with. So it's kind of that, it's an interesting journey that we're about to take.
Yeah, podcasting is a big and passion project for people that get into it. I started this podcast in May of last year, and a couple of weeks ago, I surpassed over 300 episodes. So,
woo,
Robert, I told myself in lockdown that there was only so much Netflix I could watch in a day, right? So I wanted a new way to sort of express my creative energy. So I started the podcast.
And that's brilliant, because see what you just examined right there and what you just represented and gave a great example of is 2 powerful words that my wife and I use all the time, especially when a blockage comes up or something big changes. We ask ourselves, what's next? And that's the difference between people who have success and don't. Is people who don't have success, they would have just went, okay, I'm going to watch more Netflix and now I'm bored and I'm at home and life is hard and why is this happening to me? But people that are truly passionate about having success, they go, okay, what's next? And so you dove in and started doing a podcast, 300 episodes in. Holy, that's amazing. And the cool thing is think of the people. And here's the beautiful part of this, Kevin. You don't even know whose life you're impacting from your podcast. And the better part of that, you don't have to know. But just by you living your passion project, you're impacting people. And that's making a bigger connection, a bigger difference in the world than I think you even realize.
Well, I certainly appreciate the kind words, and I do hope that I'm making a measurable difference for sure. And I'm also curious to ask you, based on your life work and what you've accomplished in life, Robert, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of inclusion for folks with disabilities, because I was born with cerebral palsy, and I always believed that inclusion is the gateway to independence. It's sort of the motto that I live my life by. So I'm curious to ask you the importance of infusing more people with disabilities in societal life, and where you come down on that part of the discussion.
It's absolutely critical to me because I don't even see, to me, disabilities. I see that people have amazing abilities. And it's just, some of the most amazing people I meet, they may be tagged as they have a disability, but I don't see that. We all have our gift to give. Every single one of us has a gift to share. And so that's where it comes down to, again, why wouldn't we include everybody? That's a lot of struggles in the world come from people's perspective. And from the work I do, Kevin, I do understand that a lot of the programming or differences come from what we learned as children. And it's generational. It's beliefs that have been passed from generation to generation. And a lot of it comes from lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. And I look at it as, it doesn't matter your background, and your belief system. You can choose to make a difference by learning, educating yourself. See, because again, I came from a group or a way of thinking that, there's a lot of disabilities and a lot of people can't do anything. And I could have chose to keep believing that, or I could have chose to educate myself and say, what's the gifts that everybody has? And that's what I focus on now. So, and I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't view people with having disabilities. I look for the gifts that are within them, knowing that you wouldn't be on this planet if you didn't have a gift to give.
Yeah,
And how can we
absolutely.
share that?
Yeah, absolutely. Inclusion comes in all different shapes and sizes. Before I did this podcast, Robert, I used to work for a project here in Windsor and Essex called the Discoverability Network, which was the province of Ontario. It's their new online job matching portal for individuals with disabilities and employers to get connected. And when I was the ambassador, one thing that I told employers was, sometimes you have to make the job work for, or the person work for the job instead of the job working for the disability. And what I meant by that is, it's another avenue of innovation for businesses to get a competitive advantage as well.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. And so it sounds like you've got that, and you're not even sure if you're inspiring people and making an impact. Dude, you are, because that is amazing, just that way of thinking about it. And that, because you've experienced it, that's what you're coming from and that's knowledge that you have that you can make an impact with that I don't have. And so that's an example of having that. I love that you said discovering ability, because that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have competitive advantages that we have to take advantage of, right? So.
Yep.
So, Robert, I know that you've created an interactive web platform and a new app. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it, buddy.
Well, when I went to write my book, Success Left a Clue, I decided, because as a student in a training, I'm always willing to learn, and I'm always learning. I'll never quit. I ended up learning about apps, and that a statement someone made, the person that was doing the presentation made, kind of caught me off guard. He said, most businesses, they start their business, develop their website and everything, and then as an afterthought, they design an app. He said, why not design an app to launch your business? So after his presentation, I sat down with him and I said, could you do that for a book? And I was in the middle of writing my book at the time. And he said, well, what's your book about? And I told him about the 6 steps of my book. And he started rattling off all these amazing things that we could do on an app. And I'm like, you can do that with an app? And he's like, absolutely. So we decided to create an app called Mentora. And it's like, take the word mentor, put an A at the beginning and an A at the end. And it's not because I'm Canadian. Let's not even go to those jokes. But it's called Mentora. And it's like having a mentor in your pocket. Now, I will let your audience know, though, Kevin, is that version 1, which has been out for a few years, we've taken offline. It was the beginner, the tester, to see what was working, what wasn't. And we're working on and coding version 2 right now, which is much more dynamic. And that one's probably not going to be released until next year. But you're on it. You're able to create your vision boards, actually design them and create them right on it. You can find accountability partners. There's inspiration. There's 6 major journals for tracking successes in your life, tracking your dreams, all the different things. And we've kept the encryption so tight because we want people to know and feel safe to write so tight that even as the developers will never, ever be able to read what someone writes in their journals. And so we're using artificial intelligence to really enhance the experience of it as well. And like I said, it's my book, Success Left a Clue, in an app version.
Very, very cool. And I wish you the best of luck in launching the second iteration of this app. And I'm curious, Robert, if you've given any thought finally to how you want your personal or professional legacy to be defined.
I guess the way I'd answer that is, did I live my passion? Did I live my purpose? Can I be remembered for that? Because my mission in life is to guide and assist individuals in not only identifying, but living their purpose with passion. And so it comes back to, I can only lead by example. So did I do that? That's how I'd love to be remembered, is that I did.
Fantastic. And finally, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can accomplish that?
Well, I am on Facebook. I have a fan page they can follow. Just put my name in to Facebook, Robert Riopel. They'll be able to find me. I am on LinkedIn and Instagram. But what I'd love to do, Kevin, because you were so gracious to have me on as a guest of your podcast, and your listeners were gracious to listen, I would love for them to be able to get the full digital version of my book, Success Left a Clue, as a gift from us to them. And now all they have to do to get it is just go to robertriopel.com. So just my name.com, and download it. But it does come with a caveat. I did not write the book for people to read and put on the shelf and make it shelf help. That's not why I wrote it. I wrote it to change lives. And in the 6 steps, step number 3 is take action. So I wrote it like a workbook where there's action steps all the way through for people to do to change their life. And I'll even say in the book, did you do the last action step? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do that action, because I know people are creatures of habit. And so I guarantee if you take the book, you read it, and you do the action steps, you will see that your life can go to a whole new level.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. You talk about being a creature of habit. You know, if it's not in my schedule, I don't do it, buddy. So I understand that, right?
Exactly. And I live by my calendar on my phone today because of the same thing. Is I want to be productive, not just busy. And so I want to make sure if there's something I want to get done, it goes on my schedule.
Fantastic, Robert. You know, I really want to thank you for your time, insights, and perspectives on my behalf. You know, I took a lot of notes during this podcast, and I'm better for having this conversation. So I want to thank you for taking part of your Canadian Tuesday and spending part of it with me. It's most appreciated.
Oh, my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.